What's really good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast where we get into what's really good in the world. It's so hard to say that seriously. For today's episode, I got to sit down with one of my best friends, Nelson Floyd. Nelson owns a company called Speakeasy Coffee. He plays in a band called Swift River Still and is always involved in a lot of cool local community projects. He's probably the most thoughtful and critical person that I know, which makes conversations like this just always a fun time. You know, on a weekly basis, him and I get together and we just sort of deconstruct everything going on in our lives and what's going on socially and politically, and we just like to tear down the barn together and hopefully come out the other side with the tools to rebuild one, maybe. Sometimes. I don't know. But with this episode, we dove in pretty hot off the bat with a story that occurred to Nelson about a year and a half ago that was very tragic and insane. So I won't spoil that here, but we just dove in pretty front heavy with that, and from there we dovetailed into just talking about personal and brand identity in the age of social media and just how that affects each one of us interpersonally, you know, how we all live in this world that's just deeply connected and everything plays a part in everything else, and it's just a weird space that we all occupy together. So we got into all that stuff and it was really a fun time. I always enjoy talking to Nelson. We have completely polar opposite personalities. Like, I talk way before I think, and he thinks way before he talks. So it's always a fun learning experience getting together with him in formats like this to learn how to communicate better. So yeah, I had a really good time talking with him, and I hope you all take something from this as well. So now sit back and get ready to hear what's really good. Nelson.
What up, Nathan?
What is really good?
You know.
It's the name of the podcast.
All
you
of
have to have an answer.
Cheetos.
All right, we're done. Ship it.
Peace.
It was good being out here with you today. All right, seriously. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, do you want to give a quick bio, story, tale?
Mm-hmm.
Anything?
All that shallow nonsense.
Yeah.
That doesn't really have any meaning.
Yeah.
On a surface level.
Yes. That's what the people want.
I'm a business owner, coffee roaster. I own a company called Speakeasy Coffee Company.
Shout out.
Sole proprietor. Well, I have a business partner. But I do most of like the daily work. Like to play drums, play in a band. Nothing famous.
You have a daughter?
Nothing good. Yeah, I have a daughter, so that makes me a father.
Who also sabotaged our last attempt
at
a podcast.
Well, she did great for like an hour, and then it went a little long. I mean, she's 4, so
yeah,
she was awesome for like the first hour.
She really was. I was impressed.
Yeah.
Nelson's daughter Hazel hung out in the podcast studio the other week, and she was so good for about an hour until she got restless and jumped on Nelson's lap. And while we were in the middle of talking, just started singing this,
she just made up a song.
Yeah, like off the cuff, this like really good tune underneath our whole conversation.
Like quiet, like she knew what she was doing. Like she was quiet enough.
Yep. It was like a movie.
But she was like getting into the mic.
Yep, she knew what she was doing.
Oh yeah,
it was hilarious, man.
Yep, that was funny.
She's great. So cool, man. So what's going on?
Not too much. So every time I come to Souderton, we're gonna get heavy
into Souderton.
Real fast here.
Let's hit it. Let's hit the ground running.
That's where we are right now.
I'm fed to the rules.
So I'm gonna tell you a story that you know, but maybe most of the listeners don't.
All right, let's hit it.
Like 18 months ago, it was Thursday, I think. My wife got a text on her phone, right? Mm-hmm. You know where I'm going with this?
Maybe, not yet.
From a random number. She didn't have the number, right? And it was a video of a man masturbating.
Oh God, this one.
Now you know.
Oh no.
Yeah, we're gonna get real deep because this is what.
Let's do it. Let's get in. Let's get into it. All right.
So Morgan receives this text, and hopefully it's okay that I'm talking about this. I don't think she'll mind.
No.
I don't think she will.
Morgan's cool.
She receives this text, man masturbating, and right away she like was like, what the heck? She sent me a text. It's like, I just got this random text from like this like random Pennsylvania number.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I don't know like what to do about it. And I was like, it's probably just spam. Like, you get spam texts, you know, maybe wrong number, whatever.
Yeah, this is the age of chat roulette.
Yeah.
And Tinder.
Yeah,
You get tons of crap.
Exactly. Yeah. So she sends me a screenshot, and I was just like, that is just so strange, right? She's like, I really want to call the number. And I was like, just don't. Like, your phone is going to, like, you know, whatever, virus, whatever. I don't even know. So she texts the number. Who is this? Nobody answers. She ends up calling. Nobody answers the phone. Goes to like a voicemail. She doesn't leave a voicemail. Then after like a little bit, she gets a text. And I'm not going to say that. I don't want to say the name.
Yeah, you don't need to.
But he responded, this is
Let's say it's
so-and-so.
Mike.
This is Mike.
There you go.
And she was like, Mike who? Mike last name. And she was like, what? Like, did you mean to send me this text? And he was, you know, basically jumped into the fact that, he wanted to proposition her for sex. That was the whole point of this text. And was like ready to get it on. Was like, I've wanted you for a long time. I feel like I've seen you looking at me. And I feel like you feel the same way, blah, 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 like all that nonsense. Mm-hmm. Well, Mike was like my best friend since kindergarten. Like, we grew up together. He was in my wedding.
Dude, everybody listening just went, what?
I don't know. So, yeah, right? So Mike lives in Souderton, right on Main Street. Mm-hmm. And every time I come to Souderton, without fail, this was 18 months ago.
Which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
I get
that, like swell of anxiety, like, in my chest. And I'm just like, I don't want to see him. Like, I stopped at Wawa for a snack. Like, what if he's in Wawa? It still happens 18 months later.
Yeah, that's really not that long.
I guess.
You know? It feels long, because, I mean, when something like that happens, it's not as if it goes away in a couple of weeks. You think about that every day for a long time. So this
douchebag says, don't tell Nelson, right? So, of course, Morgan told me. I was completely devastated.
To Nelson's wife, don't tell Nelson.
Yeah, I was completely devastated. I had a super busy day that day, roasting and packaging coffee. And I was like already behind. Like, I was already feeling like all this stress and like, this day's never going to end.
Yeah.
And it was just like this bomb. So like my dad has an office in like the same building. And I just like left my roastery, walked up to my dad's office, like walked in. He has like an outside door and an inside door, right? So like there's a door that like goes to the outside, and then obviously like a door to like the rest of the office.
Yeah.
So like I walked in through the outside door, closed the inside door, and I was just like started crying. And he was like, "What? Like, what are you doing? Like what's happening?"
Yeah. So
I had to like, I told him, Mike, douchebag Mike did this, right? So, yeah, obviously Morgan told me. A couple days later, he sends me a text, hey, can I get some coffee for my parents? Like, nothing happened.
Like, no big deal.
Yeah.
The audacity of Mike. Mm-hmm. That is just, it just blows the mind.
Yeah. Hey, can I get some coffee? So I was hunting at the time. I was sitting in a tree stand. And when you hunt in a tree stand, you sit there for a while. So, like, I got this text, and, like, 3 hours later, I was still sitting there. Mm-hmm. So I decided to text him back. Like, I thought about what I'm going to say if I'm going to text him. I thought, like, that long about what to do. So, yeah, I texted him back. I was like, dude, I got to let you know, like, I'm aware of this. This is, like, ridiculous. I trusted you. You were part of my family. You know, blah, 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 blah.
Since kindergarten.
Yeah. I mean, we hung out every week. Every week. He was at my house, watching movies, eating pizza. We'd go out to the bar together. Like, he was like my best friend. And so I responded. I thought it was, a pretty thoughtful text or whatever. And he fired back right away with another text message. Like, he knew. Like, he had a response ready.
Yeah, yeah.
If Nelson texts me, if he's aware of this, I know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the only text I've sent him. And probably about once every...
Well, what was his response text? Like, roughly?
He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't believe I did that. Like, maybe something about like, I knew what I was doing, I shouldn't have done it, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of just like canned response.
The super surface level bullshit.
Yeah, so since he's texted me a bunch of times, he changed his number, texted me his new number just so I would have it, called me from his new number, and thankfully, like, smartphones these days, right? Like, I didn't save his number.
Yeah.
But, like, you know how it comes up, like, maybe,
yes.
blah, blah, blah.
Thank God for maybe.
Yeah, so I got this call, and I'm looking at it, and right away, I'm looking at the number, and then I look down, maybe Mike so-and-so.
Yes.
Actual name, not Mike.
Wait, when did this happen? I'm sorry. I was buttoning my shirt. It's cold.
Oh, this was just, within the last 18 months, whenever.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just giving you some backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, every time I come to Souderton or near it, I'm like, am I going to see this guy? Like, I don't want to see him. I don't want to talk to him.
Because why would you?
I guess. But then part of me is like, I need to talk to him.
Yeah.
Like, we need to work.
This is a therapy session.
I guess it's become one.
I feel, though, as though you started that story off in this podcast to say, screw this location, let's move the podcast.
No,
Every time you come to
I have a lot of coffee customers in Souderton. I come here like twice a week.
I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, yeah. I get what you're saying because it's one of those, I mean, this is the classic. I mean, anytime something traumatic or just devastating in any way happens to you, I know, just generally speaking, when you have that knee-jerk response to totally avoid the perpetrator at all costs, like I would go as far to say that not, in cases of abuse, in literal, physical, violent situations, obviously there's boundaries there, and you don't want to just go back to the person's house and say your piece or get your closure or whatever. But in instances like this, it really is a tricky tightrope to walk because at some level, and I think most people know that you do have to address it and confront it at some level.
Oh yeah.
But you sort of, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you go into it, because if you go into it looking for like revenge or like just to ream them out or whatever, like that might not leave you feeling any better, And if you go into it looking for some perfect closure, you might also not get that. Like, you almost have to be at a point in your life where you've confronted the situation that happened to you and you've dealt with all the inner demons and, just the junk that's kind of piled on from it. And then you've gone through that, come out the other side to the point where, where you, I guess, are ready to almost close that chapter, and then you can address it in a healthy way. But that line is different for everybody. That looks different for everybody.
Sure. And
there's not really a clear-cut solution because you don't know if seeing the person's gonna help, hurt, or make any difference at all.
Yeah.
And just the thought of that, depending on your, I guess I'm just speaking generally when I say you're, not you sitting across from me, but the person's situation, it could be, something super, just traumatizing. So
yeah, I mean, so obviously, like, our friendship was violated, right? He took that step to, like, violate our friendship.
Yes.
But it went beyond that. Like, my wife, like, felt violated, right? I mean, it's a form of sexual harassment. It's like cyber sexual harassment. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, she was, like, completely, like, I feel like she was kind of scared for, like, 2 weeks. She just, like, because, like, he knew, like, our routines. He knows where we live.
Like when she's home alone.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah, so, like, making sure the doors are locked. Like, he knew where she worked, like, knew the car she drives. Like, he was,
yeah, of course.
Part of our family.
He's your best friend.
Yeah, so we ended up, like, the next day we, like, filed a police report just to, like, get something on the record. Just like, start. You have to, like, start somewhere.
Yeah.
If something would, like, progress, just so there would be, like, this, like, this is when these issues started.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Yeah, I don't...
So where are you at right now with it?
Where I'm at right now with it is the day it happened, I was like... I felt like I forgave him. And that was like that comes like very naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like this idea of forgiveness, right? But going beyond that, like he knew what he was doing. He made a decision to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't an accident, like he thought about this and obviously had been thinking about it for some time, right? So for me, on like a personal level, like the forgiveness aspect is easy. And I guess where I struggle, like I want him to know that, but I don't want to talk to him, right? Because I don't, it's not something I want to deal with. And I don't even know if he like deserves to hear it from me.
Like you don't even want to crack that door open to give him a chance to sort of,
where do you
come
go?
up with some justification. Yeah, because
like, what's the next
there
step?
is nowhere to go.
Like you're not coming back into my life.
Yeah.
We're not going to be friends. You're not coming near my family.
Yep.
Like.
What is there?
Now what?
What is there?
Like you need to hear me say I forgive you?
Yeah.
I feel like it's more for me.
Yeah.
In this case. That's just, and maybe that's completely wrong. Wrong, I don't know, and selfish.
No, but I get what you're saying, and anything he would want to say would just be for him. It wouldn't be for you. Mm-hmm. That's something I think most people neglect in these types of situations where it's like that Lewis Smedes quote says, for forgiveness is setting a prisoner free and realizing that the prisoner is you. Like it's so much of, you might feel, the moral obligation of, oh, no, I know I wronged this person. I have to express that to them. I have to make it right. But it's at the deepest level, that's not what's driving you to that feeling. What's driving you to that feeling is the torture in yourself. It's like you need that closure. You need to, like you saying I'm sorry is less about closure for the other person. It's more about closure for you.
Right.
Which I think is what he probably wants, because this is not something that, if as long as you're not a sociopath, like if you're a sociopath of some type, then obviously you can go through life just doing shit like that all the time. And that's,
and maybe he is. I don't know.
He might be. Well, do you think he is? I mean, you were friends with him since
I
you
didn't
were
think
a kid.
he would do this. That's the thing. Like,
that is the thing.
Like this was completely out of like nowhere.
Yeah, it's like, how do you be best friends with someone
so then
for
you're
so
like,
long?
Wait a minute. And like I knew he had issues with like sex, and like he maybe even some people would consider him like a sex addict.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's paid for sex before.
Uh-huh.
Right. So like I've helped him through all that. So like I knew there was an issue. It never.
You never thought it manifested like this?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like there was no sign.
Because it's a violation.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between someone having a high propensity to sexual activities and having those urges and all that. And even people like with worse like biological urges, there's a difference between that and then just straight up. This is like going for the jugular. I mean, it's your best friend.
Yeah.
And someone you've known for how many years? Like 15 plus?
Longer.
Like 20 plus years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right around 20.
And you're willing to risk it all for this text of you masturbating.
For some booty.
Yeah. Like it's just so bizarre. Like I can't even begin to quantify it. I don't have anything to even relate to it. You know, like just the idea that through this experience of your best friend, you sitting across from me right now, like we've been friends for 4 years, 5 years, or like good friends. I should say. Close friends. That just the idea that you or I could do something like that on a whim, when you'd have no idea, like no preconceived notion that the other was capable of that. That is insane.
I know.
And you're a pretty intuitive guy. Like you would classify yourself as being cynical and critical and observational in these ways, more so than the average person. So it's not as if you were just blind, like totally blind, like you're not someone who's just like looking for the best in people all the time and ignoring their flaws. That's not you at all. So for this to happen to you of all people too, it's like,
and you kind of feel like an idiot. Like I was just like, how did I not? Like it happens, and you're like, how didn't I see it? Like I should have known this. I should have known. Yeah. Like you tell yourself that, but and the reality is, I couldn't have known.
There's no way to know. Because even people, like, I think you and I have talked about this too before, where there's people that go through your life. Like, I can name off people in my life right now that I'm friends with at different stages, you know, people who are closer, some that are more distant, but I know them on some personal level. And if you were to ask me, interviewer, you know, poignant questions about, do I think they're capable of harming someone? Or do I think that they're capable of A, B, and C? I could list off, like, oh, maybe I could see him doing this, but you have no idea.
Right.
Those are all just surface level judgments that you're making off your own cognitive biases. I mean, it could be based off something as simple as them not thinking like you, or being engaged in activities that you don't agree with or understand. Like it's hard, it's so hard to even scratch the surface of truly knowing someone's intentions, no matter how well you know them in this way. Like you hope that you hope, and you want to see the best, but usually you can at least get some kind of, I don't know, like, I don't want to say I could tell, but you can, sometimes there's people you come across and you think they might be a bad person. You get like an intuition, but when it's your friend like that, that's just it's jacked.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the fact that he was my friend like kind of blinded my own intuition. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, when you have history with somebody like that and you trust them, right? It's hard. I don't know. You think about it like any situation, like, like spouses cheating on each other. Like, you know, I never thought you would do this. Like, like you're living life together. You have like a deep relationship. You're connected, and then maybe those things kind of like, I don't know, they blind you to
it's a subconscious
parts
thing.
of reality. I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know either. We're not psychologists.
No. Maybe we should stop talking about that.
Yeah, just forget about how is I mean, I don't know how much more you want to talk about.
Whatever.
How is Morgan doing right now with it? Yeah.
Oh, she's fine.
Is she like not? It's not even been brought into her peripherals.
It affects her because it affects me at this point, right? Okay. She feels for me.
Yeah.
Because it honestly, I mean,
it was your best friend.
Yeah. So I stopped having dreams about it. I was having nightmarish dreams about it weekly, and thankfully, after about a year, those stopped. So
about a year. Yeah. Just anybody listening to this, just imagine that, because sometimes when this kind of traumatic stuff happens, it's a week seems like forever. A month seems like forever. I mean, that's a year of that. That's insane.
Yeah. I would have dreams like, I would be having like a normal dream, and he would enter the dream. And it would just like completely change like the entire feel of that dream. So.
But what was she like in all this? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That wasn't cut off.
With her, like, so even like post all this, like how long do you feel like? I mean, it's your wife, so you would know. Like, how long after the events did it seem like she was recovered, or was there any like pieces left over afterward that she needed to process, or was it really more like she was just disturbed, threatened, violated, and then she got past it, and now this is like more like, for you, it's more the betrayal,
right? And, I mean, I think that's accurate. I don't want to necessarily speak for her specifically, but like, because he brought up the fact that like he thought she was like giving off signs, like that was like really heavy for her, because she was like, I mean, you know her, she's not
like, what is he talking about?
She's not a promiscuous person, right? So like, she was just like, what did I do? You know what I mean?
I mean, she's friendly.
Yeah.
That's it.
That was like her initial reaction. I remember her talking about that. And then I thought it just took time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at this point, it's just, I mean, she kind of feels for me and how it affected me. But honestly, like, aside from like coming into Souderton, or like, if I see a car that looks like his, or if I see like his parents' cars or whatever, like, I don't really think about it.
Good.
At this point. It doesn't consume me.
Good.
It's just when I'm reminded of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're in a better place with all that.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah.
Dude, that's so messed up. Where do you even go from there? Where do we go from there?
I don't know. So, do you know Brandi Carlile? Singer-songwriter.
Well, you played her.
Yeah.
Loaded question, Nelson. You played her in my car.
I mean,
the other week.
I don't want to just assume that you remembered that.
Sorry, I'm just airing you out.
Her newest album is called "By the Way, I Forgive You," right? Mm-hmm. So it was a single that she released before the album came out, and they did this like contest, like this sort of like this weird kind of giveaway contest. It kind of felt weird, but the whole idea was, you make a post, whether it's like just, text, video, whatever, on social media, use their hashtag, whatever, but you tell the story of having to forgive somebody, right? So when this song came out and I was listening to it, like it was really heavy. And this was just like around, I guess it was earlier this year, maybe around Christmas time.
We're in 2018, people.
Yeah.
We're in May of 2018.
Okay. 6 months ago.
I'm just saying this for our future grandkids who might stumble into this file. And
yeah. So when that came out, like I kind of revisited this whole idea.
Yeah.
And I was pretty close to like just not even to enter this like contest or whatever you even want to call it, but just to like kind of get it off my chest.
Yeah.
In a way. And I decided it was just, it felt too disingenuous to just make a social media post.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you're not into that.
Yes and no. It just depends on what it is.
Yeah, and it's super. It is so easy in a situation like that through social media to see what someone writes and just think the worst of it because it seems. I mean, at its core, social media it's a way to share, but in that definition, it's also a way to exploit. So, it's you hope that people just want to share experiences and like see the best in that exchange, but when those opportunities rise up, you seem to get some of those people who just solely are looking to exploit a story, and who knows, maybe even exploit like a friend's story and use it as their own story. Like there's so many things. Like there's sometimes, and I've been guilty of that. Like there's been times where you're at a party and you're telling a story, and you're into the story, and you realize, wait, was I even at this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like
you start to tell someone else's story, which is. And when it's through social media, that becomes magnified at such a high level, and then your ability to come across genuine is clouded by that.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, so you didn't post it.
No, it's not something that I feel good doing. Like naturally feel good doing that.
Just in general, posting on social media.
Even in general.
Yeah, I think you're better off that way.
Probably.
Yeah? As someone who works in social media, you're probably better off that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty quiet on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a worse off place without you. I'll say that.
Thank you.
But,
I mean, I still have like a Facebook page. It's not technically deactivated.
Facebook page. It's a desert.
Yeah, so I didn't deactivate because at the time it was right around when like all that Cambridge Analytica stuff was coming out, and like people were starting to recognize like how their data is being used and sold and stolen, and you know, so I felt like, even though it's just me, one person, I felt like not deactivating and just like going quiet and not using, right? Because these social media companies, they talk about active users, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an account, but you're not actively using it, it's almost like a bigger, like, F you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
As opposed to just, like, deactivating it.
Yeah, because people deactivate
it's like,
all the time.
Get this shit right. Figure this out.
I'm still here.
And I'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's, they're the worst. Like, Facebook is just the worst.
You're being so careful now, you social media guru.
I'm not. You know me. I am not. I will call out every charlatan and fraud and coward in social media. They're all the worst. This is my.
Did you hear that, @Jack?
Jack, Twitter, you are the worst. Why do you do the things you do, you idiot? Goodness. No, that's an interesting way of approaching it. It's like I still don't know. I mean, I don't really use my Facebook that often, but just like you're a business owner, so you have a page. That's what I do for music. So it's the same.
Yeah, and you have to have an active account to manage the page. Yeah. So it's like this, they kind of got you in a corner. Which is, I sort of get it, and that's fine. Like, I think it's a way of like establishing that page is genuine. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
to some degree.
It's not run by a bot.
To some degree, yeah. Exactly. It's not run by a bot. But I don't know. You see these people, they make a post, about getting off of social media. And I read these posts and I'm just like, what?
And that in and of itself,
what does this mean? Like, what are you trying to say?
Like, that is an attention grab.
Yeah.
That is a social media post.
Like just go away.
Just go off.
Yeah, go away.
You don't need to make an announcement.
And, if you get a text message from somebody who noticed, that's great.
Yep.
If not, like, you figure out, like, who cares and who doesn't. And, come back when you feel comfortable. Like, why make it a big show?
Because we love attention. And I speak as someone who loves attention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm doing a podcast, so obviously I love attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think really it does come down to that. I mean, no matter whether it's on social media, in real life. I mean, people always say, oh, it's the online self and then the real life self. I think it's the same self. It's just the online persona that you have is just more hypersensitized to these traits, I guess. Like
right.
the attention grabber,
mm-hmm.
the cynicism, the ability, like the knee-jerk reactions to news and to people who aren't like you. These are all things that when you're in person with somebody, you feel the same way. If someone's in front of you relaying an opinion that you don't like, you're going to feel the same way if they're in front of you versus if they're online and you're seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the feeling that you get when you're with them is layered with, but they're my friend, I don't want to be rude, I understand where they're coming from. There's all these other contextual layers added in, whereas online, all that disappears and it's just you and the keyboard and you can say what you want. And I definitely think, I don't know, it's something I do struggle with because everybody is doing it. So
right.
It's like when the people, I mess with you a lot with this because, I've been messing with you for years over just because you're someone who's gradually posted less and less.
Oh yeah,
online over the years, and me too. Yeah. We both. I've trailed behind you because I was holding out a little longer. I was like, no, Nelson, come back. Like, I'm still posting like really controversial opinions on stuff, but I don't know. Like, there's part of me that looks at it and sees if the worst ends of every part of the spectrum are the loudest ones, the ones that are willing to keep on taking over these platforms, then once all the, whatever you want to call them, moderate, like sensible, rational, whatever the word you're looking for, if all those people leave, then that just continually perpetuates it because they're still there. You know what I mean? Like, you still have it. You're a perfect example.
Right.
You didn't leave Facebook. You still have it. You're just not posting on it. And I think that's the case for most people.
Or engaging. Like, I'm not liking anybody's post. I'm not commenting.
No, you're still there.
Right.
And I think that's the case for most people is they go quiet because they don't know how to, they don't want to deal with it. I don't know. I feel personally that, it sounds redundant to even talk about tribalism on social media because it's just so obvious.
Yeah.
But with the tribalism being as strong as it has been for so long, it's at the point now where if you've been active on social media with your authentic voice in your authentic tribe, then chances are really the people outside of that aren't engaging with you anyway at this point. So really you've already built your own sort of custom echo chamber of what you want to see and who you want to hear.
Yep.
And so then it does kind of raise the point what's the, like, why? Like, why should the whatever middle ground rational people stay involved with social media if,
Yeah, I was experiencing that a little bit when I was still using Facebook on a regular basis. When I was starting to unfollow people. Like, oh, you annoy me, I'm going to unfollow you.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I just was seeing only things I agree with or only things I'm interested in. And I was just like, what?
What did I do?
What am I doing?
Did it.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
Because it's natural. Because why wouldn't you? You don't want confrontation.
Right, yeah.
I think that's the thing. It's like I literally just saw this one guy. I won't name who it is. I don't think he knowing him, I don't think he'd care at all. But he posted a status I saw a couple weeks ago on Facebook about how he's making the effort, like the resolution to post or to not comment on other people's statuses about like strong opinions or whatever, or reply to people on his that are like angry or controversial or whatever. And he's someone who is that way. He's very angry, belligerent, controversial, looking to get a rise out of people. And over the years, like I've just watched, I don't know how many hours this guy spends on social media, but all day around the clock, he owns my newsfeed. Like he is writing up super politically charged statuses and responding to everyone, all the trolls, getting in those like 100 comment threads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The kind that just drain a person. Like, I'm someone.
There's no way to keep up.
There isn't a way, and
No.
I don't know how he was doing it, but yeah, he pretty much came out and just said, "I'm not going to do this anymore." And he was a good example because he, much like myself, like, and people who know me can attest to this. Like, I mean, you can kind of just tell from the way I talk. I enjoy confrontation, and I enjoy those types of back and forth. Like, it doesn't drain me, like it drains certain people. But even when I post just one status,
I prefer it to be in person.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah, but more and more people don't want to do that.
Right.
You know? And like, yeah, like you just don't realize how much it drains you. Like I've tried to become more aware of that over the years and just to notice, and I guess that's what I'm getting at is that, you know, it doesn't really seem like there is a viable solution because either you live in a healthy, quote unquote healthy social media environment where it is an echo chamber and you're not dealing with these contentious environments, or you deal with these contentious environments at your own risk and try not to get sucked in to a hole and at least leave yourself open to learning somewhere. But it's so hard because anytime someone challenges you on social media, it's never the initial reaction to learn or to be open.
Right.
Like, it's all defense,
Yeah,
you know?
I get that.
Whereas right now, if you were to present a topic to me that I didn't agree with, I'd be open as anything. Like,
of course.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not in an environment right now where I feel the need to go off and just defend myself at all costs, you know? So, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
I don't know either. It's an interesting segue to like the only notes that I made for this podcast, though. Because I was, so earlier today, I was kind of not really researching, but I don't know, like thinking about
what you want to talk
coming
about
here and talking to you.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, poking around other people's podcasts and like reading the descriptions and listening to the intros. And they're always, you know, like the starting point is always like, what's your identity and what are the things that you do that identify you, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm an author, I'm a mother, you know, blah, blah, blah. I'm a creative.
Yeah.
I'm
I wrote
an
these
influencer.
articles. I've done this. Yeah. I've been to that.
Right?
Yeah.
But like,
totally.
Are those things really what make somebody who they are? Like, do those things make you you? Are they things that you do? Does it help people understand who you are in a way, I guess, right? Just like maybe any type of art, right? But like I think about creative people and artists, poets, musicians that were before social media, internet, whatever, right? And like obviously now we have the art that they created. But I wonder like how much of their identity they would want to be wrapped up just like simply like in this piece of art, right?
Yeah.
And like for some reason like the first thing that comes to mind is like the people that get all into like going out into like the wilderness and like abandoning things, right?
Yeah.
Who is that? Like Ralph Waldo Emerson,
Yes.
like
Yes.
Henry David Thoreau,
Yes.
who wrote about those things, right?
Yep. Totally.
I feel like, and obviously I didn't know those people, those guys, right? But it seems like what they were doing in the moment wasn't necessarily to create like this like cult of people that want to
follow
go.
their footsteps.
Yeah,
and they're
they were just doing.
Yeah.
Like they were just living and doing and being.
Yeah. I think that is true, but I do also think that what you're talking about is wrapped up in something that's been going on a long time. Maybe in some contexts even worse than today, because in older times they didn't have many ways to pass on their legacy or who they were, like within a family name. Like if you were the town butcher, that's what you were known as. So obviously you wanted to do good work because you wanted to leave a legacy for your kids and hopefully your son, or like more in like patriarchal Western cultures, like your son would be
right.
the butcher then after you passed, and that was sort of what you were known as doing. That was your job.
Mm-hmm.
And same with like painters, or if you were a painter, I think that really was, you almost, I mean, when a lot of the,
like a fine art painter, or like
I was thinking
I'm
fine
gonna
arts.
paint your house painter. Okay.
Both, I guess, but I'm thinking fine arts and like
Yeah.
medieval period or before or after. I'm just thinking as we in current day look back, we know now that a lot of artists suffered symptoms of depression from like what we could observe of them, and like you think probably a lot of that did come down to them knowing at some level that their identity in that time period meant nothing to anybody, and that they were just hoping that like when they died one day, like they'd be immortalized in their art because that was their identity. So I think the need for it and the thirst for cultivating an identity through career, hobby, titles, all these things, I think that's always been there. But to your point, it's definitely not something that makes up the totality of you as a person. We just want it to.
Right. So there's this idea, I think, in our culture where you are a brand, right?
I am a brand.
Well, okay, you run a social media account.
I'm Steakum, dude. I'm kidding. I'm sorry for derailing your great
That's
thought.
all right. No, it's all right.
We can cut that out.
No, don't cut it, man.
I'm kidding.
The idea that like you are a brand, right?
Yes.
So a lot of it, revolves around social media.
Yes.
Right? So you have to stick to this identity. You have to like put out like this idea of who you are, right? And you can't really waver. And we live in a culture where like people have figured out how to monetize that.
Yes.
Whether it's like YouTube or you
or your
create
Patreon.
a Patreon account.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like I don't hate those things, right? But there seems to be like a level of disconnect from like you running your brand of you, like, and who you really are, right? And there's some like creators that do it really well, and you can kind of like they're more raw or organic about how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some that it's all just a facade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like these old school artists, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like were they so wrapped up in like this brand identity? You know what I mean? I don't know.
I don't think they were. I think, but again, it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to gauge. I guess a lot of them were poor and trying to survive. So they were trying to get their basic needs met. But yeah, like to your point, they didn't really have the instant feedback loop that we have now, which I think is a huge proponent of perpetuating this sort of like self-brand attitude that you're talking about. Because back then, you were just a nobody. Unless you were somebody, you were a nobody. And a lot of those nobodies didn't become somebodies till after they died. So a lot of their lives, I'm sure, were wrapped up in outside of survival, like their relationships, their friends, their like fishing or, go like hanging out, reading, whatever it is they did. I'm sure it was wrapped up in a lot of stuff. Whereas now, like you're talking about people with Patreons and people who make brands out of their social media accounts. We have that instant feedback loop where when you start to do something that resonates with an audience, you get instant gratification by likes and comments and followers. And as you watch that grow or drop, you get an instant feeling.
Yeah, like a dopamine release.
Yeah, you get the dopamine release, and you it's not even just that though. It's a super visceral like you're saying, identity. It makes it goes to the thrust of who you are, because it hurts a lot of people when they lose followers or when people don't like something that they post. It's not just about affirmation or like denying affirmation to someone. It's about, it literally can make or break them as a person when you come down on them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's...
So then you look at like Kanye West.
Oh, here we go.
And what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
He's back on Twitter, tweeting every day, every hour, basically.
Every minute.
And, right, so like our culture, our society had an idea of Kanye West and what he's supposed to look like and act and think and talk about, and like he blows it all up. And whether it's like a performance art piece or whatever, like I think that's kind of like aside from the point that I'm trying to make, right? at the end of the day, like, he has close friends, he has children, right? Those are the things that matter. So like whenever like I look at somebody, I just like I wish you could know like how the people that are close to them view them.
Yeah,
it would be a lot easier.
That's everything.
Like if you could have that context and like gain that perspective, it seems like, I don't know, people would be nicer.
Yeah, well, it's like I'm spacing. I think it's a proverb, maybe that is it a proverb where it says a good name is valued more than great riches,
Yeah,
or whatever. Like I think that in this context, a good name is not a famous name.
mm-hmm.
It's what you're saying, where
Mm-hmm.
a good name is the people, like you as a person, your name, the people who are surrounded by you, you know, like your family, your friends, your kids, your colleagues, your whatever members of your team, your church, whatever it is. It's how they view you. And I think that is what you're saying. And it's impossible to know that through social media. Like, so I guess
Sure.
social media would be classified as riches in this analogy or metaphor.
Could be, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because it's like that is the social currency of today. It literally is. I mean, you're talking about people having brands. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of people's brands are built through social media. So
Yeah.
they make their money through
And part of
advertising.
mine is like, this is like where I struggle, right? So like, I own a very small company in comparison to, you know,
Mhm.
many other coffee roasters. It's a small, localized company.
Yeah.
And like a lot of, especially initially, like a lot of the sales I was able to make and the customers I was able to establish and like build a relationship with, like it was because of me, right? So
Yeah,
like
person to person.
Yes, I was the Speakeasy brand. But like recently I've been trying to figure out a way to kind of like separate that. But I don't know if that's like positive or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to do it, like I don't want to just like, you know, cut myself out of it completely.
Uh-huh.
I just like, I feel like brands should be able to like function like autonomously,
Yeah.
right? And it
Yes.
kind of like ties into that point about like industry killers and like, do you really have to like destroy a business because their owner or the CEO thinks
Yeah.
a
Are
certain way?
they the brand?
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that one individual inside the brand the brand?
Mm-hmm. And I
Yeah.
feel like our society says, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Like now we have to destroy them.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
so
like from my
weird.
perspective, I'm like, well, maybe not, like, because like I'm the one roasting the coffee and packaging the coffee, and it's a good product, but like like that should speak for itself. If you like the product that's being created, like why go to so much effort to like attack like the individual?
It's because of the transparency today. I mean, we live in a time now. I'm obviously simplifying the complex nature of everything you just said, but we do live in a time where we have access. It's access to an individual's history, who they are, what they say. These are things that, you know, before the internet, I would never know you. If I bought your coffee, I would have no way to know you. Like you're saying, unless
Right.
we established that person-to-person relationship where I was your customer and you were driving to my house. If I'm just buying it at the store, you're never going to know the person who made that coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas today, that's way easier to lock into. And I think that concept of like we have been taught, that's something we talked about prior to this conversation with millennials being industry killers, where that concept, I think, there's a good and a bad end to it, and the good end to it, I think, it's scalable. It's scalable because you're talking about like you're saying, you're essentially the sole proprietor of your business. So in your case, you are super close to this brand.
Right.
So it's almost inseparable. So it's almost impossible. Like if you were to be a super vocal person on social media constantly, one way or the other politically, if you were hyper polarizing and you were a super strong Republican or a strong Democrat or whatever, anarchist, whatever, the tribe, Red Sox fan, inevitably, if that's your social media, it's easier to attach you to the brand. So that becomes a way dicier situation, I think, than when you scale it up to a company like Urban Outfitters, where it's employing thousands of people and you have one guy, which is the CEO, I guess, who's giving money to the anti-LGBT Q plus groups, right?
I don't know the details.
It was something of that nature where the someone high up, I think it was the CEO. It was the guy at that company was giving money to organizations that most people who purchase from that organization don't agree with. That's a lot different, I feel like, because there's a disconnect between that is now like you're talking about. That is an entity. That's an entity that employs thousands of people, hundreds of locations, like supplying millions of people with a product. Where I feel like the more you scale it down, the more difficult it is to separate. So it is.
Yep.
It is I don't know. I agree with you that should a person's personal personhood, should a person's personhood really dictate the decisions of a consumer's feelings toward their brand? And I don't know. I really don't know. I think it just depends on the scale.
Sure. Yeah, it's tricky.
What do you think about that? Like, do you think there's a difference?
I mean, so, like, coming from, like, the coffee industry perspective, right? I mean, I guess we can, like, brand drop. I don't know.
Yeah, we're
a couple of nobodies, so why does it matter? There's this company called Black Rifle. I think
I know who they are.
Yeah, okay. So they've created a brand around, this like right-wing concept of like, pro Second Amendment. Like, like their logo is it's an
I've
AR.
seen
It's like an
people with
M16
their shirts.
or M4 or whatever.
Yeah.
All of their promo is like sexy girls in bikinis, right? That's all their social media is. It's just like attention grabbing. I'm trying to like make my point. So that company, their coffee is not good. It's not a good product.
Yeah.
Right? But they create like this marketing concept, this like identity. Whoever was the brainchild, I don't know, right? So like I guess I'm kind of like speaking from like the point of like looking at the brand just as a brand, right? Like they've created this very unique, special brand in their opinion, with this like very obvious identity, right? Like if you like guns and boobs, buy our coffee.
Yes.
Right? The product doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the quality doesn't matter. So I don't know if that even fits into what we were just talking about, but
well, that's like a whole other approach. That's like the opposite approach to what we're saying.
Yeah.
Or that's like you just own the hyperpolarization and that's part of your brand then. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's tricky because like obviously like what I do, like we work in primarily food and beverage marketing. So knowing the clients who we've worked with over the years and who we work with now, it's definitely a dicey area because you have these institutions full of people from the top down, and everybody has opinions because why wouldn't they? They're people.
Yeah.
So everybody in these institutions, they're people in relationship with one another within the institution who obviously at some degree share value with what the institution is selling, but also they're individuals not completely tied to that brand.
right.
So it depends on the level. I mean, like not to completely derail this back to me, but kind of for a second, like with the Steakum brand, that's something that since I started working on their social media account last August, I mean, they didn't have an active social media presence. They had done stuff through Facebook and they have done ads.
It's just like campaigns.
Yeah. But they weren't active. They weren't like a Wendy's or a Moon Pie or Arby's.
Engaging with their customers and their followers.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I was the first person through that account to do that on social media, and I developed the voice was very distinct to my real voice in real life, and subsequently then the following that I got to that brand were people that followed because of that. So it wasn't just people following the brand because of the brand, they were following it because of the brand voice, which was me. So I'm attached now to this brand via my voice. So that whole process, which then it turned into relationships with a lot of these people. A lot of them found out eventually once articles were written about the account itself, that my name was in those articles, and then people could easily tie back and say, oh, quick Google search, Nathan Allebach, he's the person behind this account. So then it really hyper attached my name to the brand, and I'm getting people who I was quote unquote friends with through this corporate account on my personal account. So now that it really tied me to this brand, because now it's a super tricky situation, which most brands try to avoid, because you don't want that. You don't, as a brand, you don't want any one person representing you as a whole, because if I do something awful or say something polarizing, that could easily be linked back to the brand in a bad way. So there's like this weird tango, because to kind of circle back to what you were saying before about how you're trying to do more work on social media and create more of a brand presence, but at the same time, you're not sure if that's the right move because you built your brand off these personal relationships. I think that tension between those two things is where more brands need to be. Because I think most brands are one way or the other. Most brands are either it's one person or at least a very narrow, hyper-focused like voice and persona, and one person representing them, you know, like either it's that, and that's that, like I just said, like it leaves holes then for if they do something wrong or bad, the whole thing tanks. Like Invisible Children was a good example of that, where they had that incident, I don't know how many years ago.
Make Joseph Kony, or make Kony famous, there
was that, yes, that whole thing that happened, but then the thing where the, I don't know if it was the CEO or if it was someone that was high up, he had that public incident.
Yeah, that was right after the Make Joseph Kony famous
thing. So it was like
that was a catalyst to this guy's mental breakdown.
Exactly, he had the mental breakdown because of that.
It got so much traction, but it was mostly negative.
Yeah, it was terrible. It was terrible for their brand.
Yeah.
So it's like...
And he was like running around the streets of LA like naked or something. I forget where it was.
So that kind of stuff, it's almost impossible to avoid it. Like as a brand, if you're a good brand, I mean, obviously that's a terrible incident that happened. You don't want that kind of stuff to happen. But if you're a good brand, you almost want to put your brand in a position where you're willing to risk that kind of stuff happening. Because you want the people behind your brand to represent you in a way that you are comfortable with. And if you don't, because if you don't, it's a lie. Everything's a lie. You can sit in boardrooms and have strategy and talk about how you're going to increase sales and all that. But if you have just bad people working for you, then everything you project outward is a lie. And eventually someone will find the thread that unravels the whole thing and your company falls apart. So I don't know. I'm just trying to relate back, I guess, with my thoughts on that, because I really do think it's a tension there. Like it really can't be. In today's day and age, through social media, you have to be more personable. You have to be more willing to risk your attaching the self to the product and the brand.
Definitely.
But at the same time, you do need to put up walls. There needs to be guardrails. There needs to be ways of communicating. You know, like Starbucks. Sorry, I'm at the end of my rant, but Starbucks, I think, is the perfect example of this, where they do their social media in a way where they interact with people as people. They seem like it seems personable whenever they comment on responding to a concern or whatever. But they had that incident with the two black guys in the Philly Starbucks who got arrested for that whole deal. The manager called, or like they found out it was the manager, right?
Yeah.
So
the cops.
Manager called the cops, arrested these two guys. Becomes a international incident, really, where it's like making news everywhere. Their response to that, in my opinion, was perfect, because it was as a brand saying, these two people represent our company, we're taking responsibility for it, like this is our way of publicly saying. And then they did those what is it, like they took a day, it's like the end of this month or last month when they're closing all Starbucks for a day. So whether or not you agree with that specific sentiment, because obviously it's a politically charged issue anytime there's race involved, for whatever reason that's a political issue, but no matter what end of the spectrum you fall on with a sentiment that like that, where they took this position, they're doing something as a brand that is showing they care, that they understand that these people represented their brand and they're taking action. So I think that's a really amazing example of how like you can handle crisis aversion when situations where like you're talking about, because it really, you shouldn't ever feel like on an individual basis, you should never feel under threat to act a certain way when you work for a brand. You should be able to be yourself as long as you're a law-abiding, decent person. Like if you're calling out hate speech and calling for violence or whatever, you should expect what comes for you. But as long as you're a decent person, your opinions shouldn't be causing you to fear for your employment on the individual level. But then on the brand level, you should also have an awareness of how individuals within your company can come off and who they can turn out to be, and how you're willing to handle that and roll out your whatever you want to call it, your crisis escalation plans into the public. You know, sorry for the rant, but that's
no, it's good.
I think it's somewhere in there that you want to be in between.
Yeah, it
those
makes
things.
sense. Yeah. I think about, like you mentioned, Moon Pie and Wendy's, right? So like, obviously right now they have somebody's running their Twitter, and they have a specific voice. What happens when like that person leaves?
Oh,
right?
Yes.
So like, does like Moon Pie say like, do what they did? Like, and then it becomes like this very disingenuous thing, right? It's not like there's like
is it
now
though? But is it?
I don't know. It seems well, you were just saying like for Steakum, for you personally, like,
yes,
your voice.
It's me.
Is what grew your following. You know, what people connected to. It's you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I didn't want to talk about Steakum and you personally, but I mean, I could.
We're here. Yeah. Let's
I mean that like. So what happens when you stop running the Steakum social media?
Well, again, I think it's scale. This is just my view of it because I built something bigger than me with that personally. And same with Moon Pie, same with any of those other accounts. I mean, to people listening who don't know what we're talking about, Moon Pie is probably the second most popular corporate brand on social media next to or beneath Wendy's as far as like their active presence and insofar as how much media coverage they get and engagements they get. But no, I mean, when I look at like trying to compare myself to these like megaliths online, but from my smaller angle with the Steakum account, it is definitely a tricky. I don't think it's just black and white either way. I do think it's tricky.
Sure. Yeah.
But it is. You're right. Like I built the voice and the brand in that context.
Right.
So there's people.
So does Steakum go do what Nathan did?
Yes, they do. Because then I built that voice, so then that becomes, that's what I'm saying, I guess, where it's bigger than myself. And I'm not saying I'm like this heroic person, or I'm saying that the brand itself took on a nature that was beyond me, you know? So I would, that is what you would do. I mean, you would, because brand voice development is something that's been going on for a long time. Decades, centuries, however long, like ads have existed in different formats. It's the way for a company or a person to communicate the product that they're selling in a way that's relatable, as authentic as they can be. Again, scaling, depending how big or small they are, that comes off super inauthentic if you're too big and too out of touch with reality. But that's the goal. So with the Steakum account, in doing so, I think it's not at this level of its like growth, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's inauthentic if someone else came in and I had to train them in the voice, whatever. Like even we have a guy. His name's Bob, who's our intern, and we made him that account on Twitter, which is @theIdiotIntern. And we call him Intern Steve. So that's a character we developed, and Bob helped. I had developed a voice early on with that, but I actually made a Twitter for Bob to like really reel that voice out, which he developed. So that's a whole thing where he was able to come up with that, and it became a personable thing. And along the way, like I'm working pretty close with him. So I've actually had him help on certain busy days, like with the Steakum stuff, and he's responded to a couple people just to see how he would do. Like if I was really busy, I'm like, hey, like I know you watched this really closely. Like let's just see. He knows the guardrails. He's been here long enough. It was a safe situation. It
just replace random words with beef and like say charlatans a lot, and you can do it. Anybody can do it.
That is the formula, pretty much. I didn't have him do like posts. I was just having him respond to people
DMs
or whatever.
or whatever.
Yeah. And he did amazing. I went back and looked at his stuff. I was like, this is exactly how I would have sounded. So I think that's what I'm trying to say is like it does. And I don't know. I'm trying to see if I can even say this. I know the guys at Moon Pie. I mean, the agency that represents them is this agency in Knoxville called Tombras Agency. And the guy who developed, so it's a pretty large agency, like a 200-plus person agency. So they had a bigger team on the Moon Pie account as a whole when they were developing out the account's voice. So I don't know personally how many people went into those meetings and like really came up with that style of humor or wordsmithing. But I do know that at the time of its boom, which was August of 2017 when they did that Eclipse post that was a clapback at Hostess Snacks, and it got them like 1 billion impressions or something like that. I do know that the guy who was running it then and ran it for a while after, it was one guy. And I'm actually going to do a podcast with him as long as he doesn't bail. Patrick, don't bail.
He's definitely
bailing now. But his name is Patrick Wells, and he's a genius. I mean, when you look at the voice work he did for that. But they actually did a similar thing, which is what you're talking about, where obviously, like, I'm not speaking for them. I don't know what their team did internally, but they had a team of multiple people working on that account. So once he developed out that voice, now it's a transferable thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I get what you're saying, where there's a level of, you sort of lose the authenticity at some degree because it's not going to be the same person forever. But I think if you're a good brand and you develop a good voice, then that does take on a life of its own. Because if you are too personal, like, I think that's the issue I was running into. Early on, that's fine. But the bigger you get, the less you should do that.
Sure.
Like, say let's just put this back on you, your coffee company. It's just you right now. But say 5 years from now, you have 20 employees. And then 10 years from now, you have 50 employees. Say you're like becoming a huge coffee company. As your company grows and more people, there's more moving parts. You have someone who manages your social media. Then maybe you have two people managing your social media. Maybe you're overseeing it, but they're posting stuff.
Yeah, and
So
I mean, by that
point,
the brand has a voice of its own.
Exactly. So
Right.
it takes on a life at some level.
I mean,
and then it's not as authentic because it's not you and the people, like you're talking, going person to person. It's not you responding to every DM and every comment, which it was before. But is it really any less authentic? Because the voice of you is now understood by your employees.
Right.
You know?
So I guess I take it back to quality of the product then. And I don't know how deep you want to go or like how much time we even have at this
deep
point.
all day, brah.
But so
it sounded so weird.
Right. So like Moon Pie has really great engagement. It's funny. It's fun to follow.
Yes.
Moon pies are disgusting.
To you, I don't like them either. But people in the South love them. It's a Southern food.
Yeah.
It is. It's like a Southern, like that.
I guess my point is me following Moon Pie on Twitter and laughing and liking, smashing that heart button thing.
Smash that heart button.
What value is that to them if I don't like their product?
Oh, dude, that's everything. Yeah, let's go deep. I mean, I don't want to make this all about Brandon.
No, I don't.
But I'll touch on it. I mean, my thoughts are your engagement, quote unquote, to their posts, whether or not you like the product or not, is indicative of your own network. So I mean, I had to go through this motion a lot with the people here with the Steakum account. With early on, a lot of the people who followed the account were vegans, which was super contradictory and weird. And they just liked me, and they liked the stuff they thought it was funny. They thought the whole thing was funny, and that they had their friends engaged with it, so they had a good time engaging with it. They didn't take it seriously. Obviously, they weren't eating the product,
right?
But they followed the account, and I had to sort of. There's two factors to that. I mean, there's one, if you actively don't like the product, that leaves a lot of windows for trolling, or even better so, the wow factor. Because if I post from a meat account, hey, here's my vegan friend, that in and of itself is worthy of attention, because people are like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Like, a vegan likes meat. And you could say the same thing across the board, where it's like, if you hate
But the
moon
vegan
pies,
doesn't like meat. The vegan likes the voice.
But it gets exactly. But I'm saying that's what if I was a onlooker. That's the thought. The thought is, why is this vegan following the Steakum account?
Yeah.
Same thing with you, where it's like you're saying you hate moon pies, but you like the account. So if you were to
say I hate them, I just don't eat them. I think they're
whatever.
disgusting.
I put words in people's mouths sometimes. I'm an idiot.
Your Twitter. I like your Twitter, Moon Pie.
Moon Pie, don't kill me. But like if you were to post something then either in a funny way or in a genuine way, like if you were to comment at them and say, hey, I hate, again, just being being exaggerated, I hate moon pies, but I love your account. That is an opportunity for that brand to take that, highlight that comment, respond to it, or quote tweet it, whatever. Make either respond in a snarky way or in a sensitive way, but it brings whatever that is, whatever that wow factor is. It draws attention to people, like, oh, people are following this for more than just the brand. It's now about the voice, and then when you create that bubble of attention, you get potential consumers. You know what I mean? So it's like not If you want to talk
like
about
so my cousin in Georgia who sees that I liked that post
exactly
might buy it.
so like and obviously we're talking from a strict consumer sense, like this is like the least authentic thing as far if you talk branding, like this is like literal numbers, like you're playing a numbers game if that's your only goal. In my case, and a lot of the Steak followers, I'm friends with some of them on my personal account. I just like them, like they're cool, funny, genuine people. But if you're looking at an end game, just a numbers game, it's, as far as impressions, engagements, whatever, that's what you're thinking about.
Sure.
You're thinking about how can I use any situation as a catalyst to get more impressions, more engagements, and you do that through invoking emotion and experience and putting out something where people feel like either weird or like they're a part of something, united in a united way, or so that's what those moments create. I think. Was that a burp?
Yeah. Like inside me.
It almost sounded like
it didn't come out of my mouth though.
Like in my headphones, it was like a.
It was like in my chest, and.
I mean, I liked it, but
that was weird.
It's fine. Yeah, enough brand talk.
I don't trust my body.
Okay. I don't trust your body either. Coffee body. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway.
I didn't think I'd talk about Steakum with you.
That's fine. I mean, it's what you do. It's all good.
It is.
It's interesting to me.
As long as it's interesting to you, I hope it's interesting to other people.
I hope so. I mean,
it's not interesting to me. It is interesting to me. I guess I downplay it a lot because it's to kind of go back to what you're talking about in the beginning with the ego, the identity type of stuff. Like it's to me, talk about building an identity on something like that's kind of what inevitably happened with that to me, or I just never in my life imagined that. Like people knowing me for being the guy who runs the Steakum account, which now has happened to many people in my life. It's like when they see you. It's like when someone sees you in public, they haven't seen you in a couple months or a year or whatever, and their initial thing is, "Hey, like how's school going?" or "How's work at this place?" or "How like your beard looks nice?" or "Oh, the Steakum account." Like there's these things that people love to attribute to you, and that's a weird one for me because as someone who likes to talk about themselves and as someone who, enjoys attention and enjoys pampering my own ego, even though I try, it's like a love-hate thing. Like I'm aware that I do it, so I try to, I guess, take away from that. You know what I mean? It's like when I do end up talking about it, it's not that I don't like it. I have fun talking about it, but I also don't want to ever come across like I'm. I don't know, like glorifying in it. You know what I mean? And like you're talking about making it like the thing. Like I could go all day talking about this thing, and it just sounds like, oh, he's just talking about himself, and that's so uninteresting to me as a listener. As I am listening to myself, if anyone else was doing that, and if that was the entire depth of the conversation, I would just tune out. You know what I mean? Unless there's some deeper meaning or some deeper arc to the story.
Totally.
Like if you're just talking about what somebody does. Just like you said at the beginning of this, where you're saying when you look at podcasts and you see the guest and like who they are, their job occupation, a little description. If that's it, like if that's all there is to that person, I'm out. Like I just don't care.
Yeah, sure.
Like talk to me all you want about that stuff. It's just not. I'll read a book about it. I'll read an article about it. I'll watch a YouTube video about it or listen to a podcast. I don't need to sit in front of you, or you sit in front of me and we just like talk each other's ears off about how great we are and what we do. It's just not.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Sorry, that wasn't a jab at you. I'm just jabbing myself kind of.
I got you.
When I get into that stuff, that's where my head kind of naturally goes.
I've never. I mean, we shouldn't keep talking about
brands,
marketing and brands. I've never.
You brought this up originally for a different purpose. So that's why I'm trying to kind of bring it back.
Maybe I'm like an odd consumer because I care about quality of the product, quality of the content, whatever, of what I'm purchasing, what I'm, putting my money toward. Like I want it to be good, right?
Or your time.
So like if a big brand like Pepsi changes their bottle or like Coke starts putting people's names on it, it's not going to make me buy Coke. Like Coke's okay. It's fine. I'll drink it every now and then. I've never looked at like a marketing strategy and been like, oh my gosh, I need to have that. And maybe I'm just weird.
You're definitely weird.
I don't know. Like when I buy something, like something major, like I do a ton of research. I read reviews. Like, it takes me days. Like, I just bought a new snare drum. It took me like probably 2 weeks to make a decision about which snare drum to buy, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't look at like, oh, that's a cool ad, or that's a, I like the look of that logo.
Yeah.
Like, I want that to be on my drum. Like, I cared about how it sounded.
Well, it's a good bias. It's still a bias, but it's a good bias to have. Like, we were talking about this with the whole millennial and consumerism conversation we had a couple weeks ago, which for context's sake doesn't really matter to listeners, but just to jump in on that topic of millennials and consumerism here, I think that, we all look for different things when we're consuming product on some level. And traditionally, in past decades, it was the ad, like what you're talking about, not caring about, the ad was a huge part of that because people on a mass scale were much easier. There was fewer channels of information. So when a new mattress company came out, or a company like Walmart or whatever it was, a new brand like Coke comes out, the fewer channels that there were provided an outlet for that thing to just take over, and everybody bought it, and then it flooded people's minds in an easier way. Whereas nowadays the market is just so vast, and there's so much going on. There's so many things you can buy. You can choose all these different like intricate soda brands and intricate snack brands and clothing brands and experiential brands. And I think our value system has shifted from, like you were saying, like most people are impressionable when it comes to an ad. Like they just are. Like it's human nature to be impressionable, but I think our ability to be impressionable is changing. So you're talking about quality of product. I think that's a huge one. But I think even for most people, another one like you're talking like that. You're someone who you create products. So I think that's maybe why you have more of a bias there, because it comes down.
Yeah, but I didn't when I was 15.
You mean you cared about that more?
Yeah, like I've always not cared about.
So maybe it's more of a temperamental thing.
Maybe
for you. It's a deeper.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Saying,
you're fine. I love that. I cut off people all the time, but I'm saying you're right. Like I'm trying to say for you, whatever it is, it's a deeper thing going on.
I mean, now I have a better understanding because I'm creating a product. I do have a better understanding of like, why I'm that way. I guess you could say, and like, it does help me like market in a certain way.
Yeah, and you care more about your product being great.
Yes. Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah. I care about putting out, a good, high quality product.
Yeah.
And the marketing is important, and I recognize that, and maybe I take it too far, but I try to be so like transparent, like in how I talk about my product and my marketing. You know what I mean? Like I don't try to create an idea of what it is.
Well, see, the problem there is that you're a good person.
Yeah.
So I
need to hire somebody that's not a good person.
No. I'm trying to say most people with brands aren't as, I guess, for a lack of a better word, pure. Like you're kind of a purist in that sense, where you're saying, I don't need to put up a facade. This is who I am. These are my values. My product is good. Most people don't have that. Most people, their product isn't the best. They might think it's good. Obviously, most people think their product's good, but they're stacking it up against other products, and depending on the field, maybe it's clothing. Maybe they think their clothing's cool, but they're looking at their other competitors and saying it's not that cool. So what are some things that they can stack it up against better to their competitors? And then they start to search out these different like strategies to grab people's attention. I think one of them that is a good one that I think millennial, like people our age in general, are much more attracted to than previous generations because it has a much different connotation, is the philanthropist model, which is like which when you have brands like Warby Parker or Charity Water, you have these brands that they're built off of donating part of their surplus to a person in need, a cause, whatever it is, and that is attractive to younger people. Even though I think on some level we know it's tied into marketing, like we know that this is all part of their brand DNA. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about as a person, you feel authentic enough where you don't have to market a certain way because the product's good. I know who I am. I want to be as transparent as possible so other people know who I am.
Right.
Whereas a lot of these other brands, who knows who's running Warby Parker? It could be the worst person ever, but they're doing good. You know what I mean? So like if you're not a great person, or even if you are a good person, but you don't have any, I don't know, like personality, maybe you have a hard time communicating your ideas or your beliefs or your values, then you want to create something like an apparatus over the brand that can kind of draw attention to that good thing. You know what I mean? I think that's sort of like the newest form of advertising. That's really breakthrough. It's not new, but it's breakthrough to younger people now because it's I don't know. It's sort of counter-revolutionary where, like I said, we know it's sort of marketing, but it's also in the face of profit in a way. You know, we look at it, we say, oh, like they're not just about profit. They're not just about capitalism and selling me something. Like they care.
Sure.
Like, they care about something.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that's just one facet. But
Tom's shoes.
That's one. Yeah.
They're not, like I've bought a couple pairs and they don't last.
They're terrible shoes.
They're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like they created it, like a company like that feels like nefarious. Like it feels like their intention is to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's really neat that they send a pair of shoes to, like, you know, a country that's in, you know, living in poverty and third world country.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Like it's a good feeling, but like, I mean, are you sending?
How much of it are you sending?
Yeah.
Because these shoes are like $30 for a really crappy pair of shoes.
I don't know. I'm not a part of that company. I don't understand everything they do. But when you look at it, just like for what it is, it just feels like very disingenuous.
Yeah. And that is the branding. That is how you come off. Because it's like, you can brand, like, again, perfect contrast, Warby Parker to Tom's. What's the difference?
Like, why not come out with a really awesome pair of shoes, sell that to people, and then send shoes overseas without telling anybody? Like, why? Well,
because it's branding. That's what I'm saying. And this is, again, simplistic, and we're breaking it down to like the meta marketing level. Course. So this is all like, we're not speaking on any.
I'm going to change my mind about all this tomorrow. So.
But I mean, I guess to your point, like, yeah, Warby Parker is a good brand. People love their glasses. They're nice quality glasses. So like the idea they're donating glasses to people in need feels more real because it's a good company. Whereas Tom's, I know they've had, I'd have to go. I'd have to read up on it. I haven't even thought about Tom's in years. I don't really see people wearing them anymore, but I do remember there was kind of some sketchiness. I knew people were talking about them because it is like, it's weird how high their profit margin is with how low the quality is. And I don't know, again, I could be totally wrong. Maybe I should add like an amendum into this after I do some digging, but I don't know how much profit they're keeping for, like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, there's like the whole nonprofit thing is kind of like a joke when it comes to larger companies because you can be labeled a nonprofit and your CEO is still making $1 million a year. You know, it's like, it literally just means that the company itself isn't profiting when your employees could be making exorbitant amounts
of course.
of money.
I mean, so
there's who's really to say? Like, I don't really know.
Salaries are an expense, so.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I don't really know, like with that company in particular. I think I remember something shady about it, but yeah, it's like that's a whole thing in and of itself as far as like the authenticity and the quality of the brand. Like, it does matter.
Sure.
You know, because long term, guys like you, like, more people figure it out. Like, more people start to ask questions and look at it. Like, I don't see anybody wearing Tom's anymore.
Right.
There's not good shoes. Whereas, like, I think as long as Warby Parker keeps up good quality glasses and keeps doing what they're doing, they're not going anywhere. Like, someone will be forced to compete, like, directly, which I'm sure I know they already are, but like a larger scale competitor doing exactly what they're doing will be forced to compete for that business because it's a good product. You know, like, it's, I don't know. But
there's so many.
What do I know?
There's so many like ways you can go and talk about. There's so many like a little offshoots. Like,
I know, because you could highlight the good parts of it.
I don't buy my glasses from Warby Parker. I buy them from a guy in Souderton who runs a little optical, store.
That's a whole other thing.
So I support him.
Yeah,
and his, him feeding his children.
Yeah, I think the contrast between the corporate America and the mom and pop shops is interesting here too, because like I think as more young people move into the cities, the options to buy from mom and pop shops like that, it's not that they dwindle, because obviously they have a lot of mom and pop shops in the city, but for whatever reason, it's a expense, it's a convenience thing. Like the young people buy online more than they buy in person. So
Sure.
I think there's a lot of yearning by young people to make a difference in the world without doing anything. You know, like if you buy Warby Parker glasses, you feel like you've made a difference in the world, so you don't have to. Like, I feel like what you're talking about, going to a mom and pop shop, that's more visceral. Like, you might know the guy, you can like see his shop, you can get to know him, he's right in your town. Supporting his business, you're supporting a local entrepreneur who might employ other people, who supports the local economy. That's, to me, I mean, they're different. I'm not trying to compare the good necessarily, but it's a more visceral relationship. Whereas when you buy online and you buy from giant corporations who are trying to be altruistic, it's a little bit more detached. And I think that's, for whatever reason, across the board, what younger generations do, which circles back to the whole social media virtue signaling type of thing, where people just, for whatever reason, we're all attention seekers, but some people would rather exude that attention-seeking part of them almost exclusively online, and then you see them in person, and it's like they're quiet as a mouse, or all of a sudden they don't want to talk about what they're talking about online because it's more difficult, you know?
Yeah. I guess I'll just leave it with like one more thought.
Okay, one more thought.
At the end of the day, any business is operating to make a profit. Like, there are very few businesses that can function long term without making any money, right?
Yeah.
So it's about making money.
Yep.
Regardless of the marketing, regardless of like that strategy,
or what good you're trying to do,
or you know, the quality of the product, right? So if you find a company that makes you feel good, like I think that is okay. Like on a very basic level.
Again, everything we're talking about, like down to the base. Yeah.
So if you feel good buying from a company, then that's great. But every single business exists to make money.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good note to end that segment on. Yeah, for sure. Because, you can scale it up, you can scale it down, but at the end of the day, it's businesses need to make money to survive.
And if Tom's wasn't making money, they wouldn't be around.
Business. It wouldn't be around. Yeah, so it is like, find companies that you can attach your values to, but also don't solely place your like that part of you. That all. I feel like we can kind of like, if you want, I don't know which trail you want to go down to. I don't know. Look at your notes. Like, do you have?
My notes are over.
We can.
We're way past my notes.
We're past your notes. Beautiful. So I was gonna say, if you want, we can kind of trail into maybe like altruism a little bit, like through the lens of social media and versus real life, because that's a good sort of segue into that. Because I think, because insofar as, you know, everybody wants to be better. Everybody wants to do, like, if you're a decent person, unless you're just evil or whatever. Like, even some of the worst people that I would classify as being bad people, they think they're good. You know what I mean? Like, they think they're doing good in the world, even if their motivations or their actions speak otherwise to me. On some level, everybody's trying to be better. They're trying to commit some good or whatever. And I think it's whatever it is about social media, the detachment, you know, the mass influx of information. We were talking before about the dopamine rushes you get, the addiction of being on it, whatever that is. I mean, it's definitely, I feel, and let me know what you think about this, I feel that most people, when you talk about activism, like, I don't want to like totally go down the rabbit hole of like social justice and all that, but when it comes to particularly activism and making a change in the world, these things now almost exist seemingly solely on social media versus real life. Like, when I know you and I, we have like a pretty fairly large network of friends compared to most, I think. Like, we have a pretty big community of like good people that are active, and we hang out and talk and all that. I'd say when I look at the scope of them, you know, in person you don't really see much of this, but online you see it. You know, if there's a ratio, like the altruistic activism, good opinions, whatever, the conversational stuff, I would literally classify that as 95 to 5%. Like it's 95% online, 5% in person.
Okay.
That's me. I don't know. Like, and I think that 5% is good. Like when I get together with you or any of my other friends, it's a good talk and it's good stuff. But like insofar as output, you know what I mean? Like my output, my each individual's output in that arena. And a lot of that you could attribute, a lot of that percentage, this is all rough in my head. I could be totally off, obviously. Probably am way off. But in my mind, most of that percentage you can attribute to time. Obviously, like you're spending time at your house, eating dinner, at work, at school. You're not with other people constantly. You're not in the marketplace constantly. So you don't always have opportunity to enact, I guess, good in conversations and change in real life. So you do what you can with what you have, which is online. Totally fair. But I still think that even with that, like that adjustment to the ratio, you know, it's still pretty skewed toward, you know, this stuff being addressed more online than real life. And I don't know, like, do you have any thoughts on that sort of paradox, for lack of a better word?
Oh man.
Like, do you think that it's something that we should be on an individual and communal and I guess national, but you have more control over individual and communal levels? Like, do you think that it's something we should be actively seeking to change, or do you think that the fact that most, again, this is my estimation, I'm probably not right, but from my estimation, do you think that it's fine that most of this stuff exists online now? Like, and that's like a natural progression, or do you think that there's some kind of need to get back to real life, like you and I are having right now? There's conversations, communal gatherings, activism in real life, street activism, change on a more visceral level. Do you think, you know what I mean? Like, do you think the progression is natural to online and that's fine? Or do you think we've kind of missed the mark?
I think we've missed the mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need to go back to like one-on-one.
Yeah.
Kind of, I don't know, boots on the ground type of mentality.
Yeah.
I look at social media more as like a tool, right? To like the bigger goal, right? But it's just one tool.
Yeah.
I mean, you still see like politicians having town hall meetings, right?
That's a good point.
They didn't just like throw away, like, oh, now we have the internet.
We have Twitter.
And I can just beam my face and all my opinions to these people's phones and computers, and that should be fine. Like they meet at a grassroots level.
Yeah. And
like, I don't know, like when you think about like the movers and shakers, like in any community, like it's rarely just they have this like an online presence and like they're making all these things happen.
Yeah, is it ever? You know what I mean? Like I can't even think of an example.
Yeah.
Like it feels like it's always a real life. It starts in real life and then progresses to online.
Yeah. Sorry, it took me a minute to kind of catch up with you.
Don't apologize.
I was still thinking
you're
about.
Processing.
You said altruism. I was trying to figure out what you meant by that.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. To people listening, like Nelson and I are like best friends. We process conversations completely polar opposite, where I talk faster than I think, and he thinks way or speaks way slower or slower. Than you think. I don't know what
I process things slower before I want to even.
You're much
speak.
more wise. I would be, if we were an archetype, I would probably be the Joker, right? Or the town fool, and you would be like the wise sage.
Come on. There's
people listening right now potentially that are just like, yeah, that's actually totally right.
Part of what I was trying to think about is, can you really truly be altruistic online? Right? It's like the idea of altruism is like it's selfless act to like help somebody else. It doesn't get you anything, right?
Yeah.
And when I look at social media, it's all about the identity. It's all about people engaging and liking and like, oh, like look at this nice thing I did. I'm going to put it online and all these people are going to like it, right?
Yeah.
So like is that true altruism?
Well, is there true I don't know. I mean, now we're getting into philosophy.
Whatever, okay,
Because I feel like
fine.
you're right. Because I feel like if you want to talk in true archetypes, true altruism perhaps doesn't exist. I mean, you're talking, you get into Buddhism here, or it's like, does the Buddha doesn't become the Buddha till they die or till the end of their life. You know what I mean? It's this whole, the idea is that you can never fully get rid of the self, but you can train the self, I guess, to get to a point where you're mindful of it. You can observe it like in real time and then step outside of it momentarily. I think you can kind of parallel that to this in a way where, yeah, you're right. Altruism as a word that we use in context on a daily basis, it's not a pure thing that anyone can attain.
Right.
We're people and we're selfish on some level. But it's interesting because, like, yeah, you're right. It's like there's different levels to attaining that. And I think social media, it blurs it and it makes us all stumble way more, because just to go back to the example you used at the beginning of the conversation where you had that band, the Brandy Carlisle, is how you say her name?
By the way, I forgive you.
Yeah, by the way, I forgive you post
Brandy Carlisle,
where you thought about posting on that, your story, and had to like think twice about it, because what am I doing with this? I'm just selfishly motivated or whatever. I think that in and of itself is actually that contemplative moment that you had, even just considering that. I think that's the first step to getting to the altruistic stage. You know what I mean? Because it's like you have to become aware of how you're coming across in any context. Like, we all know the people who post their feelings online in a very venting sort of way, and it's like a complete outpouring, and it's not to take away from the authenticity of that. Like, obviously they're typing something that they feel in real time, so that aspect of it is true, but they're also doing so in knowing this is going to get them attention. They want attention, whether that's a positive or negative thing. They're looking for
affirmation.
For affirmation, exactly.
Right.
So in most cases, affirmation, but I guess like
I think that can be healthy.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But to your point, how aware you are to that and how much thought you're putting into that, and then there's a fine line between overthinking it, which I think where people like you and I fall into, where you think so much about it, then you just don't post at all. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Or you post and then you hate yourself, which is sort of the
idiot.
Yep. Which is sort of the paradox of us podcasting right now. I hate my fiance Chelsea hates when I use the word paradox. It's like she thinks it's the most pretentious word ever. But that's kind of what it is, because we're both sitting here talking, projecting something out for other people to listen to, knowing that they're going to spend their time, aka money, their product. This is a product that they're going to consume, hopefully. You know, and we
Depends
know
on how long we keep going.
Yeah, right. We're probably at the cutoff spot, but no one's listening anymore. but we're doing this for other people, so there is a selfish component to it. But then there's also the selfless component of it, where you and I both know we're trying to create better conversations, get to know each other better, learn how to speak better, in order to start that kind of groundswell.
Yeah,
of
it's
whatever.
a paradox for sure.
You know what I mean. So
we kind of talked about this the other night, like. Recently, I've started like viewing podcasting as like a new type of art, right? It's like you're creating something to give to the world, right? I think where it can become maybe like, I don't know.
Like
what's
cross
the
that
antithesis
line
of
into just self-serving? Yeah. Cross the line into just self-serving.
Yeah. Is when like you care more about how people are responding, right?
Yes.
Like, you should just care about the art. You should care about the product. You should care about like whatever it is you're creating and putting forth, right? And if you feel good about it, like, end of the story.
Yeah.
You know, it's great if people respond in a positive way, right? And it's great to have that affirmation, and maybe it helps you keep going and creating more. But like when you really break it down, if you feel good about it, like, you know,
I totally agree.
That's all she wrote.
But I also, to kind of go back to everything we've been talking about, where you started talking about branding before, I think as you scale it up, then it becomes more important to focus. It's like if you imagine the two things going up at the same time. So you imagine, like, say we're podcasting today. Say there's 10 listeners. So if you scale that up to us 100 episodes from now, this is never going to happen. But say it went from 10 listeners to 100,000 listeners. at each step along the way as that scales up, I feel like you need to sort of be consciously aware of how you're coming across and then how you're perceiving feedback from listeners, because I think that it works both ways. Like you want to be proud and love the craft that you're putting out and believe in it. You know, you want all that for what you're doing. At the same time, you want to adjust accordingly as you need to and be open to change and your flaws and feedback. And these are things, you know, again, there's a balance. You don't want to just be giving in to every Twitter troll. If someone says, oh, this offended me, and it's like one person, maybe you don't need to change what you said or how you said it. But if it becomes 100 people, if it becomes 1,000 people, if it becomes a day-to-day thing where people are saying, hey, this, it's like, you know, the more it scales up, the more you want to be mindful of it.
Yeah,
you know?
Being mindful, and being aware of that. I get that, yeah.
But at the end of the day...
you need to still be true.
Exactly.
And you don't want to lose your soul.
You don't want to change for the sake of them.
Yeah.
You want to change because you want to believe that they're trying to better you. You know, I guess it does come down to sort of intention, you know?
Like, I can't imagine, like, if 100 people walked up to Da Vinci and was like, you know, I really don't like the eyes on the Mona Lisa. Like, you should change them. Like, would he do it?
Yeah.
He'd be like, oh, you're right, I'm going to appease you. Like, maybe she wouldn't be hanging on, you know, in the museum right now.
That's such a great example. That's such a great example. No, I love that. That's so true. Yeah, there comes a point where you have to push through the muck of people, because everyone, just going back to everything we're saying here, everybody has an opinion on social media. Everybody has a thought. You and I talk about this all the time. Like, we listen to a bunch of different, like, ranging political and social and hobbyist podcasts. So we're always deconstructing the things that hosts could be doing better, or episodes, how they could have been better. And I think you could do that all day. I think there's nothing wrong with healthy deconstruction. But when that becomes an obsession of trolling and just being constantly pessimistic and cynical and negative, then that's more of, you're right, that's more of like a self-evaluation for them. Like, then it doesn't become Da Vinci's problem, then it's their problem. You know, like, I think there's definitely a healthy level of criticism for sure to have. Yeah.
Maybe that's a good point to leave it, and we can pick up on that next time. What do you think?
Yeah.
You good with that?
I'm gold.
Cool.
I feel good about this. Nelson, thank you for coming on the podcast and telling the people what's really good.
Peace.